Welcome back, everybody. We've got plenty to talk about today. SpaceX is down over 30% from the high since its IPO. We're only 8 days into this company as a publicly traded stock, and we've got major index inclusions coming up over the next couple weeks. And we've just learned that SpaceX had an $89 billion demand for a bond offering, which they were only seeking $20 billion for. I also want to talk about the lockups, supply and demand, and what I think is going to happen over the next several months as these things play out. Let's get started. The first thing we need to remember is we're only 8 days into this company as a publicly traded stock. Within the first couple days, this stock did trade up to $225 a share before falling 30%. While that may seem dramatic, if we look at the history of IPOs, this is actually pretty normal. The markets haven't had enough time to figure out the actual value of the company. We still have several major events we have to get through before price discovery can actually happen. So for the next few months, I expect a lot of volatility. This is pretty normal. Now here's something really interesting that just happened. While the stock market is debating valuations and trying to figure out what the company is actually worth, the bond market sent a very different message. SpaceX wanted to raise $20 billion in bond offerings. The demand was so strong that investors put in orders for $89 billion. So the demand was so strong that SpaceX actually increased their bond offering to $25 billion. So they didn't take the whole 89, but they did take 25, which is $5 billion more than they initially set out for. Now let's think about that for a second. Investors wanted to invest nearly $90 billion into SpaceX. And whether you're bullish or bearish on SpaceX stock, that's a pretty impressive vote of confidence. It also fits into a bigger theme we're going to talk about in this video: demand. Because while the stock market is focused on the recent pullback, institutional investors are showing a tremendous interest in the company. Another thing to pay attention to is SpaceX isn't the only stock under pressure right now. We're seeing a lot of weakness in AI-related stock companies as investors start to question valuations and future growth expectations. It's not just AI companies. We're also seeing pressure on space-related companies. Rocket Lab, AST Space Mobile, Intuit Machines. A lot of these companies have pulled back as well. So when I look at SpaceX as being down 30% from its highs, I don't immediately look at that and say, hey, there's something fundamentally wrong with the company. I think part of what we're seeing is a broader pullback in the high growth sector. The market seems to be stepping back and asking, how much further growth is priced into these stocks? Even though SpaceX is a new IPO and it's in that stage where it's highly volatile, SpaceX is not the only company being affected by that question. Now let's talk about something I think might be getting overlooked: demand. Now when a company gets included into an index like SpaceX, all the ETFs and mutual funds and everything that tries to mirror and follow those indexes has to buy those companies. So when SpaceX gets included, this creates immediate demand. Now, in this case, SpaceX's case, the inclusion happens to these different indexes at different times. Now, these different institutions that are going to buy the SpaceX stock don't care if it's cheap or expensive. They're just required to include it in their portfolio. Now, I have a schedule of these indexes and when SpaceX will be included. And I've also included the major ETF associated with them. And I'm going to go ahead and read those off to you now. So June 18th, the CRSP, the total market index, SpaceX gets included. The major ETF is VTI. June 26th, the Russell 1000 associated ETF, IWB. June 26th, the Russell Top 200 associated ETF, IWL. On June 29th, the MSCI US indexes, global institutions and pension funds. Expected early July, the NASDAQ 100, The major associated ETF here is the Qs, QQQ. Now the way I'm seeing it is each one of these inclusions is going to create a wave of demand, with the largest being the NASDAQ 100. Now all these different institutions that are going to be buying SpaceX and including them into their holdings, these ETFs and these institutions aren't making valuation decisions. They're following the index rules. And when enough funds are buying the stock at the same time, that creates a real buying pressure. So far we've only talked about the demand. Now let's talk about the supply. Right now there are a lot of people who cannot freely sell their shares. Employees, venture capital, early investors, insiders, they're held up in the lockup period, and eventually this lockup period expires. SpaceX has done something a little bit different than the traditional IPO. These lockup periods are tiered, and as these tiers expire, the people who hold those are allowed to sell more of their shares. As they sell more of their shares, more becomes available. This creates selling pressure. This doesn't automatically mean the stock price is going to go down, but it does mean that a lot more potential shares will be available. Over the next several months, there's going to be a battle between supply and demand. On one side, you're going to have index inclusion, ETF buying, and institutional demand. On the other side, lockup expirations, employee liquidation, and profit taking. And this will increase the number of shares on the market. See, the question isn't whether I think SpaceX is a great company or not. I think it's a fantastic company, and ultimately, I think it will do well. However, for the next 6 months, I expect this company to be very volatile, at least the stock price to be very volatile. I expect as inclusion happens, the demand increases, ETFs buy, institutions buy, and then the lockups expire, so all the companies and people do their profit sharing and liquidate shares, and they capture what they can. This is going to create so much volatility that price discovery just can't happen yet. Now I know that the big lockup happens on day 366. This is when Elon Musk himself and the major investors are allowed to then sell. However, they typically, the investors of this size, don't sell, they borrow against their stock. That's how they get their money. Now, having said that, Elon sold Tesla before, so who knows, anything can happen. It doesn't mean that's how they're going to do it, it's just a way they can do it. Another thing worth keeping in mind is the Cursor acquisition. This deal is expected to complete using SpaceX stock. This transaction hasn't closed yet, and we still don't know what that lockup will look like for those shares. While that should be considered, I don't think it's a major factor in today's price action. But it's definitely something to watch as more information becomes available. And when those shares become available, that's further supply on the market. Personally, I like this company. I think it's got a good, strong future. It's disruptive. It's got a great technology. It's got a very interesting long-term vision. But I still understand that the first year of a new publicly traded company is highly volatile. Initially, especially with a company like this, the hype tends to take it up, and then over the next few months it comes down and then levels off. But I think this is going to be a really exciting company to watch. If you're a trader, this can be an exciting time for you, as you probably like the volatility. I know there are different ways to play IPOs. I'm not encouraging or discouraging that. I'm just trying to say this is what it is. The way I see it is the next few months are going to be real exciting as we get to see both sides play out in real time. We're going to see the demand side from the index inclusions. And shortly after, we're going to see the lockups expire, so we're going to see the supply side open up. It's going to be interesting to see which side has a greater pull and how they affect each other. Personally, I'm not predicting where the stock's going to bottom out because I really don't know. If I had to guess, I'd just say below the IPO. But that's not really fair, is it? Because most of them do end up below their IPO in their first year. SpaceX is currently one of the most talked about stocks on the market right now. And by the end of the year, the volatility in the stock is going to calm down. more information will come out, things will settle in, and price discovery will happen. Let me know in the comments below if you're a trader, if you think you will be trading this over the next 6 months, or are you a long-term investor and do you plan on waiting? I'm curious to see where you guys are. Until next time, follow for more.